in the late 90s, a music tour called Lilith Fair happened, and it was a first, a lot of firsts. It was the first time a all-female lineup did any kind of tour. Some of those lessons, I think, are just as important today as they were back then. Welcome back to the channel. This is Cindy, your sassy Southern grandma, coming to you from sunny Colorado. And I recently watched a documentary that I thought we'd talk about today called Lilith Fair. It was a documentary about, or it's on Netflix, a documentary about Lilith Fair, the music festival that was put on by Sarah McLachlan back in 1997. It continued into 98 and 99. And it was something that had never been done before. I wasn't even aware of this at the time. During that time, I was going through a tumultuous separation and divorce and raising 5 kids by myself. So I wasn't really in tune to pop culture and what was going on at the time. But this was very interesting to me. That the first thing that shocked me was that radio stations at that time, 1997, we're not talking 1957, 1997, radio stations refused to play 2 female artists back to back on the air. They said they would lose listeners, that nobody wanted to listen to 2 women back to back. And the look on Sarah McLachlan's face when a DJ told her that was exactly what I was feeling. Have you got to be kidding me? Why is this even a thing? But it was. And at that time, there had never been a concert tour where there was more than 1 female on the list of people who were singing and performing. And that was stunning to me as well, because I thought after the 60s and 70s and some of the women's liberation movement that some of those things had been shoved to the side, but obviously not in 1997. So she, in promoting her records and in talking to other female artists, found out that that really was a thing, that they would not put 2 women on a bill to be in a concert, and they would not play even 2 women back to back on a radio station. So she set out to change that and got several of her female musician friends together, and they started Lilith Fair. This was the first time this had ever been done. Everybody thought it would be a failure except the women who were doing it. The music genres went from pop to rock to country to indie to all different kinds of music. And as the tour went on the first year and then the second year and third year, they added more artists to their list of people who were performing. And sometimes they had someone come in just for 1 tour date. The first concert of the tour in 97 was at the Gorge. And people, even some of the performers, didn't think that there would be a turnout, that there would be a good turnout. They completely packed the place. It was standing room only. All the tickets were sold, and there were people trying to get in that couldn't get in. So that was a huge success to start with. Then as the concerts went on, as the tour went on, it got bigger and bigger and bigger. Unprecedented numbers of people in the stadiums and venues where they were singing. They also took in a lot of money, about $52 million over the entire tour. And they also gave away millions of dollars to charities. They had the idea, Sarah had the idea early on in the first tour, to take $1 from every ticket and give it to a women's charity. I think the first one went to a domestic violence shelter, and they were able to give them a lot of money to helping with the domestic violence survivors. Now, everybody that wasn't going to those concerts was not so thrilled. A lot of the disc jockeys, a lot of the male artists had some not so nice things to say about it. Like, how can this even be happening because there's no men on the docket? And they had a lot of trouble getting sponsors to begin with, because no sponsors thought that they would make any money, so they thought they wouldn't get paid. However, that was not a problem going forward, because once they saw that this was a huge success and it was going to continue to be even more success each time they went out, they found out they had no problem getting sponsors after that. The media did a lot of pushback throughout the tour. Even after it was successful, there was a lot of talk about it being a chick fest or a woman's only concert. There were men who went to the concerts. There were men who worked on the stage setup and driving the buses and all the things. It wasn't just it's only women, men can't come here. Not at all. But all of the artists were female. Some of their musicians were male. So it wasn't an exclusionary thing. It was more inclusion, actually. On the documentary, they interviewed a lot of people who had been to the concerts, and there was nothing but high praise. Everybody said it was wonderful, that the atmosphere was great, that it was so positive and empowering. And the word I kept hearing was safe. There wasn't any violence. There wasn't any harassment of people. It was a safe environment. In fact, they showed a little clip from Dan Levy, who said he was 11 when he went to Lilith Fair. And he was a closeted gay man at the time, a boy at the time. He knew he was gay, but he was not out to anybody because of the times. But he said that Lilith Fair, going to that concert, was the first time he had ever felt completely safe. He felt as if no one there was going to hurt him, pick on him. He had been bullied in school, but that was a safe place, and he knew it. He felt it when he was there. There were some inner conflicts and outer conflicts throughout the tour. It was the first time something like this had been done. They did have Tracy Chapman at the very beginning, but they would do press conferences at each stop. Before the concert, they would do a press conference, answer people's questions, say things that they couldn't otherwise say without that press coverage. And one of the reporters early on asked, why is it mostly white women? Why is it not more diversified? And Sarah, who I admire a lot after watching this, was very open to any kind of critique of what was going on and said, you know what, you're right. I'm going to look into that. And that's when they branched out to more like reggae, African music, rap. They had Queen Latifah, they had Missy Elliott, they had India Ari. I could just go on. There are tons of multicultural people. There were some Asian, some Hispanic, some Black. There were all different kinds of women represented throughout the tour once that was brought to her attention. And I admire her for that, because she could have said, this is my tour and I'll pick who I want to. But she was open to listening to that. Now, there were some things that she stood up to that people would ask her, why don't you do this or why don't you do that? She'd say, because this is my tour, I make those decisions, when it was something she felt like she needed to stand up for. So I learned a lot more about her through this documentary and really admire her for her stand that she took. They normally had a Planned Parenthood booth. They had a lot of vendors, a lot of booths of different organizations in each local area that would come and advertise their services at the concert, prior to the concert. If they had a Planned Parenthood local chapter there, they would have them set up a booth and offer free condoms, free information about birth control and all the health services that Planned Parenthood does. And because it was mostly women attending, that was a good service, a good way to tell those women, these services are here. You can get cancer screenings, you can get STI screenings, any number of things from Planned Parenthood. They did go to a couple of places in the South that demanded that Planned Parenthood not be there. But she did not fold to that. They were there, and they were able to do a little limited distribution of information, but they still showed up and they were still there to give the information that people asked for. There was a lot of pushback from the media. There was one instance that just cracked me up and then kind of made me angry, where at the end of the concert, all the women would come up and sing a song together. And it was just a jam fest. They had a blast. You could tell everybody was having a great time. And at the end of a song, Paula Cole held her arm up, as people do when they're singing, and she had not shaved under her arm. And her armpit became fodder for newspaper articles, late night shows. Jay Leno did a bit about it, making fun of the fact that women have hair that grows under their armpits. At first I thought, that's kind of funny that they would even focus on that. But as I continued to watch and saw how many very famous men had something to say about it, I got a little angry. I thought, well, why do they care? Why do they care that she's got hair under her arm? People across the world don't shave. Women don't shave under their armpits. But because this is America, everybody's got to fit a certain feminine standard. And if they don't like it, they're going to get called out. And if you ever wonder about shaving and why we shave our armpits and legs and all those other things, Google Gillette and look at how they doubled their market of selling razors by telling women that their hair on their body that they were born with, that grows naturally, is unsightly, unfeminine, unattractive, and needs to go away. So they could sell more razors. They were only selling to men up until that point, and then they went to all the ladies' magazines and put in their advertisements about how unsightly your hair is. That's maybe a whole nother video. Anyway, I digress. A lot of things have not changed in the music industry and in media since then. Some things have changed, some things have not. Radio play is still skewed towards male artists. Female artists are more critiqued about how they look. There were numerous artists that talked about how they were told what they needed to wear, how much weight they needed to lose, how their record labels, who were supposed to be managing their musical artistry, cared more about how they looked and their marketability than their voices. That still happens today. I'm sure you understand that, because as music has progressed on throughout the decades, it has gotten more and more, because so much is on video, so much is on television, so much is on your phone on videos, that marketability and appearance have everything in the world to do with it. Not so for males. Just compare it sometimes about how attractive some of the male superstars are. A lot of male superstars, even from back in the 60s and 70s, are not visibly attractive people. And they pretty much wore anything they felt like wearing. But women have to be policed. So that's some things that have not changed. But a lot of things have changed. It was one of the first visible times that you saw women supporting other women. Our society tends to try and pit women against each other. Stay-at-home moms against moms who work outside the home. Women who have children against women who don't have children. Women, it's just everything is a they-them thing. But this was one of the first times that we saw women supporting each other. Women saying, you go, you do your thing, I do my thing, and they supported each other. Over those 3 years, some of them had babies. Some of them brought their babies with them and were breastfeeding backstage. They'd hand their baby off to another artist and go out and perform and come back and get their baby. It was a family atmosphere. It was a supportive atmosphere, which I would love to see more of with women. It's something I try to promote at work, because nurses are primarily women. We do have some men. A lot of them are very good nurses. But it does help to know that that other female nurse has your back as well. Some of the lessons we can learn today from Lilith Fair is that aspect of supporting one another. It makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference when we pull in other women who may be outside of our normal sphere of influence, like Sarah did. She pulled in artists that she'd never worked with before. She pulled in artists from totally different types of music, and they were all accepted on the same concert venue. Another lesson is that sometimes when something's not there that we feel like needs to be there, we have to make that space. It's not going to come to us, we have to go to it. That if we see, why aren't there more women doing XYZ? Maybe we just need to make that happen. That's what she did. She saw it wasn't happening, found out that women were vastly discriminated against, and decided to take a stand and do something about it. She herself didn't know if it was going to be successful, but she didn't let that stop her from making that space to see if it would be successful. Sometimes that's what we have to do. We have to make things happen that other people aren't going to make space for us to do. There was also a great social impact of the concerts because they gave a lot of money to charities that were struggling. They were able to make an impact on every city that they went to. They made an impact there in their advertising, in their way of contributing, and the visibility of those services that women that went to those concerts may not have known about if they hadn't been there. How about you? Are there places in your life where you've been told to sit down, be quiet, that's not going to work, or women don't do that, or women don't go here, or we just don't do that? Think about those areas. What's an area that you can make space? Or is there an experience you've had where you have made space, where you've supported other women, where other women have supported you? Share those in the comments. I think it's very important that we think about our daughters and our granddaughters and all the women around us and the women to come to have the confidence and the example that women can make a difference. Women can stand up and make space for their art and can make space for their voices. Thank you for watching. Give us a like and a follow, and I'll see you next week.
Welcome back now. Here.